Hi, today I'm going to do a heat resistant sweat proof makeup. So this is a look you can wear on a very hot summer's day, especially in the city when you kind of really want to wear makeup, probably because you're working, but it's just so hot and it's hard to hold on to makeup. So I'm going to start by using a sunblock first. I'm going to use the Clinique City Block, and this is a factor 40. And I like this one because it's oil free, but it has good UVA and UVB filters. It goes on a little bit white in the beginning, but you just have to really blend it in well. And because my skin is pretty much combination, especially in hot weather in the summer, I wouldn't personally use any heavy moisturizers or creams. This sunblock kind of ticks off a lot of boxes because it's got antioxidants in, but it also has protection. So for me, it's enough moisturization and it's got enough protection. The only other thing I would use is something like a mattifier over the top, because although this is oil free, it's still too shiny for me, and I prefer a more matte look down the center of my face in hot weather. So I'm going to use the Decleor mattifying moisturizer. I'm not going to use it all over. I'm just going to use it either side of my nose, my chin and my forehead. And again, really thin layers, well blended. I think as soon as you start putting too much moisturizer, too much sunblock, too much primer and everything piled on top, it's a recipe for disaster. You want very, very thin layers, well blended and well sort of smoothed into the skin so that everything's in synergy with the skin. It's not sitting on top and building up. Next, onto foundation. And if you're used to wearing foundation, then even in hot weather, obviously you don't want to go without it. So I recommend using a more long-lasting one. A good one is Double Wear Light, because it's not too heavy, but I find it to be amazingly long-lasting. I'm using shade number 2. So I'm just going to really blend this in well and just apply it where you need it. And the secret, once again, is really blending a thin layer in. You don't want a lot of foundation sitting on top of the skin. And with these long-lasting formulations, just blend the right amount in. So if you just use a little bit extra in the areas where you need it and less where you don't. So that's the foundation done. And with the long-lasting ones, you can really feel them setting. And that's pretty much feels set to me now. So I'm going to go on to concealer. I'm going to use the long-lasting concealer by Lancôme. And lots of brands do them. In fact, the Double Wear, Estée Lauder Double Wear also have a really good long-lasting concealer, as do cheaper brands like Revlon and Collection 2000. The long-lasting formulations tend to be a little bit more drying, so if you do have very dry skin, you'll have to compensate by using a moisturizer first that gives you that hydration that you need and that moisturization. And then once you use the products, you'll find that, for me, for example, I find that I never need to use powder over this particular foundation because it's so long lasting and it sets to quite a matte finish. It's matte enough for me. So I skip powder. And use a little bit more concealer around my mouth area and chin. For eyes, the easiest way to do melt-proof makeup is to use a long-lasting cream shadow. So something like Maybelline's 24-hour colour tattoo is really good. And lots of brands make these. You can also get away without using a primer because they really set. I mean, they act almost like a primer. You can either use them as a base, or you can just use them on their own, which is obviously really quick and easy because you just apply with fingers. I like this colour because it's a really pretty kind of minky, lilac-y colour. It's quite a nice summer colour. Really nice with brown eyes. They also do a lovely bronze shade which would look amazing with blue eyes. And if you want to build up the colour and make it more intense, then I suggest using a brush to blend those edges before it sets. You can feel it setting, like all of these long-lasting formulations and waterproof formulations. They really set quite well. Now, if you feel like you need more definition on your eyes and you want to use a pencil, then there are so many great fully waterproof pencils around that are also nice and soft and quite blendable. I'm going to use this one by Australian brand Mirenesse, and this is almost like a khaki colour. It's a really beautiful colour. And this is their 27-hour waterproof pencil, which I've actually used on shoots and things, and I think it's pretty good. So I'm taking it all along the lash line. I'm also going to use this dotted underneath and into my waterline because it's such a good waterproof pencil. It'll stay put. And then quickly before it sets, blend with a cotton bud. Top and bottom, just to soften that off. So we've got the definition, but it's a nice summer's look, so it's not going to be too hard. And I think using sort of slightly lighter colours, whether it be khakis or kind of pretty purples and things, instead of black, just gives a much lighter feel around the eyes. Before I apply mascara, I'm going to give my eyelashes a really good curl. For my mascara, I'm using the Urban Decay Cannonball waterproof mascara, and this is a very, very good one. I know I often use the Giorgio Armani one, but this is quite a lot more reasonably priced, and it's still very good. You definitely need to use a waterproof mascara, or at least a water-resistant mascara, which another really good one for the water-resistant is the Eyeshadow Black Magic. Because if you don't, and you're in a humid country, you're going to have mascara flaking off, making a mess of your concealer, and just generally melting and looking awful in no time. So I'm going to put plenty of this on because once this sets, it really doesn't come off. So you can really build this mascara up. Get a nice lashy look. So onto brows, and for brows I wouldn't bother with sort of powders or regular pencils. You want something that is waterproof if you're going to be in very humid conditions, and my favourite ones are the Suki waterproof brow pen, which I've used before, and the Makeup Forever waterproof gel. Both of them are really, really good. I'm going to use the Suki. I'm just going to add some strokes, and once this dries, it really is going nowhere. On my cheeks, I'm going to use Daniel Sandler's waterproof bronzer and waterproof blusher. I'm going to use the real corally shade. I'm going to start by using the bronzer. I'm not going to apply it with fingers though, because the base that I have on, the very long lasting double wear light base, is quite matte. So I think if I start trying to blend that in with fingers, it's going to get a little bit intense and maybe a little bit blotchy. So instead, I'm going to use it with a brush. Just using a regular kind of blusher brush, really. So just bringing the bronzer gently onto my cheekbones. So I'm not doing anything too sculptural, just keeping it quite soft. Adding a little bit of colour, a little bit of bronze around the hairline, temples, a little bit onto my neck, touch centre of my nose. And then using the same brush, I'm going to wipe that on a tissue and then go in with the coral blusher and apply that more in a sort of C shape onto the apples of my cheeks, so I get the colour. And then again, just wiping the brush on a tissue, taking off, just going to smooth everything in there. And I can feel that setting already. So just make sure everything is really soft. You can use fingers just to pat and blend any edges that don't look quite right. The nice thing about using a waterproof cream blusher is that you still get that nice dewiness. So if you've used a long-lasting foundation, which they often tend to be quite matte looking, and then you add the cream blusher, it just gives life and brings a summery look to the makeup. You know, if I'd gone over with a really matte powder, blusher, I think the whole look would start to look quite heavy and matte and just not summery at all. So it just brings that freshness back, really, that life into the skin. So onto lips, and the same philosophy applies. We want really thin, well-blended layers. So to start with, you want to get a really good stain on, and you can use for this any of the lip staining products around, whether they be the liquids that you get or the felt tip types of stains or lipsticks that are, you know, very, very long lasting stains. I'm going to use the Maybelline 14 Hour, and this is Stay With Me Coral. So I'm just going to use this to get a base layer on, if you like. As with, again, with all long-lasting products and waterproof products, they do tend to be a bit on the drying side. So we're going to get this on, and we're going to add another layer of moisturisation in a second. And when you're applying them, really rub them into the lips. You want them right down into the base level of the lips, so you can get that really good stain going. If you want to cheat the shape a little bit, which is what I'm doing by just extending slightly, then you're best off using one of these matte, opaque type long-lasting lipsticks, or a waterproof pencil that you just use all over and make corrections with. Once you've got the shape exactly as you want it, then give a really good blot with a tissue. So that's a really indelible stain. You can see it's not going to come off. It feels very drying though. So the next thing I'm going to do is to use this moisturising pencil. And this in itself isn't too glossy. It's quite waxy. So although it feels nice and moisturising, it has almost a waxy stickiness about it. And I'm just going to put a thin layer of that all over. And that's going to be really long lasting. And then throughout the day, if you need to touch up, you can just add a little bit more of this pencil, and you should be left at all times with a great lip colour that's not sliding off and not melting and not mushing about all over the place. So that's the finished look, and I've gone for quite a dramatic look, quite a strong makeup look. Obviously, you don't have to use eyeliner and eyeshadow and bright lipstick, but in fact, I've gone for quite a colourful look because I've mixed it with a really strong teal nail as well. I think the main thing is that look out for waterproof and very long-lasting formulations. Do bear in mind that they are more drying than usual formulations, so you may have to compensate either by applying more moisturiser beforehand or applying less powder than you would normally. And everything needs to be in very, very thin layers. The more you build up on the skin, the more likely it is to all slide off and be rubbed off. So thin layers, well blended, good formulations, and then you can do whatever look you like, and you can be confident about it. It's going to last. So I hope you like the look, and I'll see you soon.